One of the topics that have been very popular recently is the impact that AI is having on clinicians. Of course, AI will help improve workflows and make their lives less frustrating. But what's not spoken about as much is how AI can actually improve the level of personalization and the confidence of some clinicians. I'm about to sit down with someone who's going to tell us a little bit more about that very topic. Hello and welcome to Healthcare IT Today, where we explore the latest trends and interesting technologies from the world of health IT. I'm Colin Hung, and I'm about to sit down with Lalith, who is the Director of Clinical Informatics at the Guidewell Group. He and I are going to talk about how the eClinicalWorks AI assistant has helped a number of their clinicians to be more personable and be more empathetic with their patients. Let's get to it. Lalith, thank you for coming on the program today. I'm excited to sit down with you.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get started, can you give our audience just a quick overview of your organization and your role?
Sure. Yeah, I'm the Director of Clinical Informatics and Business Intelligence at Guidewell DCMG. DCMG is a multi-specialty organization in Florida. We're in a lot of West Florida, and we also have, with Guidewell, Puerto Rico and South Florida as well.
Wow. Okay, so you've got quite a catchment area.
Yes. Yeah. A huge, diverse group of patients.
And you were saying before we got on camera, you get a lot of snowbirds.
Oh, yeah, definitely, yes. So we're actually reaching into other states, and we're bringing patients down. So that's been a challenge, getting medical records. And patients are seen up in the north, and then they come down. We find it's a struggle to keep that continuity of care going.
And that kind of leads me to my first question. You were telling me that you're making very good use of one of eClinicalWorks' AI features that allow you to really consolidate and get information when the patient arrives. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so that's called Prisma AI. And what it does is it works with HIEs all over North America, and it pulls data in. If you have the patient on your schedule, it'll actually create a little summary. It'll look at thousands of documents on that particular patient and then create a real nice, concise summary of just the relevant good parts, as I like to call it, of all those CCDAs and technical documents on a patient.
So instead of reading those 18, 19 pages for each record that gets pulled from an HIE, it's already pulling out just the relevant parts.
Right. Yes, just the most important, pertinent. And it can, and one of the great things about it is it can actually look at your specialty and then be specific just for what you're really treating the patient for. So
yeah, because I think you were on stage just now talking about a cardiology example, right? So if I'm the cardiologist, I just want to see all the cardiology related parts of that record. I'm able to do that with Prisma AI.
That's correct. Yeah, that's astounding, and I think that's a lot of the cognition that AI has, where it's learned the experience of what the specialty is, what it's composed of. It's really complex and amazing to see.
So just walk me back a little bit though. What did your providers do before that? Or did they always have Prisma AI? Like, did they have to scroll through all these pages before?
They tried to ignore some of those things. But yeah, they actually had to have this really intense pre-visit process, which took 2 days to do really, because they had to pull the documents, aggregate it. You had to have an MA or a clinical assistant really go through these documents, pull out the pertinent stuff, print it all out sometimes because hospital records, and we still use fax machines. So, and then just pull out all the pertinent data and then try to provide it put it on the provider's desk, and then they would have to scan it back in. So it's a crazy process.
Wow, saving time, saving the environment, and providing better care. You've hit the triple. You've hit the triple right there.
Yeah. Yes. Bingo.
And it sounds like the reaction has been really positive from your providers in terms of having this information available to them.
Yeah. I'm surprised. With ECW, there's always a module, and then there's this thing called fear of turning on another module because there's so many options in ECW. But this was the first module or application that we really had providers reaching out to us and trying to turn on when they heard from their other colleagues how amazing and magical, if I could use that term, Sunoh AI was in bringing some of this data into the chart.
You're just leading me straight to my next question. I was going to ask you about Sunoh AI. You're using that quite a bit. You're using both the voice, ambient voice kind of application, and you're using it to actually help with generating summaries and generating communications back to the patients. Tell me more about that.
With Sunoh AI, what it does is it listens to the conversation with you and the patient, so it's natural, the patient's at ease, you're not staring at a computer typing and everything, and you're not missing any of the pertinent information. Everything is being captured. So it really builds this beautiful story of the patient's consult visit, when it used to be a sentence or two about, actual, like what the patient's here for and all the legalese that is in there. It's now like a story of what the patient's actually there for. And it makes the provider really enjoy the experience, the patient enjoy the experience, and it puts less burden on documentation.
Yeah, because a doc would typically have to do this afterwards, either at night, and by then the visit details might be a little bit cloudy.
Correct, yeah.
But now that it's capturing in real time, I'm presuming it's got a lot more information there that's now available to the docs in that record.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if you could have a visit and just replay it whenever you need it to document. That's what Sunoh does. It has the transcript for you. It records the conversation and keeps it for about 7 days. So you can always go back. You don't have to find those notes that you were writing in the visit.
And you were saying that with one of your docs, that they were a little bit uncomfortable maybe with written English, so they would only write the barest minimum into the record to remind them of what happened. But now with Sunoh AI, they're very comfortable just having the conversation, and as a result, the record is much more rich than it was before.
Yeah, that was a really great moment when I met with that provider. She told me that English is her second language, and she would be kind of conscious about what she's writing, so she'd really keep it as discreet as possible and as minimal as possible. And with Sunoh, it just records the conversation. She can freely have it with the patient, and it writes everything out, perfect grammatical, no errors, everything looks good. And the patient sees it because now everything goes to the portal. And the patient thinks that they're seeing a totally different provider now. So it's pretty amazing.
And the funny anecdote you gave as well was that with Sunoh AI, it actually humanizes the doc a lot more, because I guess they've all been trained to just stick with the facts, be very clinical. Mm-hmm. But now with Sunoh AI, they actually sound very personable.
Yeah, and the patient summaries that they receive, it's amazing. Before Sunoh and after Sunoh, the provider looks like they're just typing away, and now they're writing a story, and it's more human, and it's at a level that the patient can also really understand and comprehend. So I think in patient satisfaction, it's going to do phenomenal.
Lalith, tell me a little bit about where you're going to take things going forward, because you've done a lot. Like, you were telling me that you implemented eClinicalWorks in just 3 years. That's a lot. Like, that you switched from another EHR to this in just 3 years. Where are you going to take them next?
Yes, well, first, do not switch EMRs during a pandemic. That was the worst experience ever. And within that 3 years, though, ECW has made it really easy to implement some of these modules. And some of the next steps that I'm really excited about are things that Girish was talking about with language interpretation. We have, South Florida and even Puerto Rico. We have providers asking for Spanish, and the dialects that it can interpret is amazing. Some of the RCM things are also looking great. Coding. The job market's really tight right now, and to fill some of those requirements, we have staff, but when they can perform at a higher level, this is not a way to replace an employee. Mm-hmm. I read this really great quote that AI won't replace humans, but humans that use AI will replace humans that don't.
Right.
And it's a complement to your workforce. So we're really trying to establish where this thing can go.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head there. Right now, we're suffering from a staffing shortage. It is really hard to find somebody. So the fact that we can deploy a technology to help the person that we have left or the people we have left, mm-hmm. I mean, that's just a benefit. So it's not, like you said, it's not replacing any of them, but it's just helping them do their job faster,
more efficiently,
taking away probably some frustrating parts of their job.
Yeah. I mean, the cost of cognition is what AI does is really amazing. It reduces any kind of training time because the machine's already trained. You just have to make sure that the people training it, the data is, you trust it, and so that's the important part.
Now, I want to go back to something we just sort of touched on a little bit. That 3-year journey. I mean, you convinced an organization to change their EMR. You've obviously been a champion of implementing AI into the practice. What advice would you give to someone maybe in your shoes at another organization who's really trying to hit the accelerator on improving things or maybe implementing some new technology, but who may be running into a little bit of resistance?
Yeah.
What would you recommend to them?
So change management is something that I learned to be very successful. So understanding what the technology is and what the benefits are. People are always looking at the bottom line and the ROI, but there are experiences that staff and providers really like that will enjoy their experience. So what I would say to them is understand change management, really learn where this can be implemented. You really have to know how to assess AI in your organization. Be able to get the key points that will benefit through AI, and also look at the technology. Make sure it meets all the requirements, and then present those staff. And then the only other thing I would say is give it a try, because the cost to implementation is so low. AI is such a hyped technology right now, and with NVIDIA and all these organizations asking millions of dollars to implement some of this AI stuff, it's amazing that ECW can cut the entry cost into this technology. So there are some really compelling reasons to go with AI, and highlighting those compelling reasons is the most important.
I really like what you said there, because we hear about, read about, watch stories about AI and how it's going to change the world, but we can choose how we implement it. We don't have to go big bang right out of the gate. We can do something small, and like you said, test it, try it, prove it, and then let it naturally get adopted. I'm sure that when you implemented ambient voice for the first time, that first doc was the envy of every other doc, because they're like, what do you mean you don't have to do that much documentation anymore? What do you mean it's tracking all the conversations?
Yeah.
Where do I sign up?
Right.
That was much more of a natural pull rather than trying to force, which may be what we had to do with technologies that weren't as exciting as AI.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, because that's exactly what happened. It just traveled through word of mouth. Once you got it into one person, it just expanded.
Now you did mention some of the things that were exciting for you, the RCM AI that's coming, some of the other things with AI. Outside of AI, though, is there anything that's really exciting you, just from a general health technology standpoint?
The integration with other health systems, EMRs, the HIEs that are working. You want to pull in all that data. Again, AI promises that it can, condense all that data for you. But I think the integration with other health systems is really important. There's a shift in healthcare right now for us, specifically for managed care and value-based care, and being able to target those contracts and implement those in a really successful way is going to be pretty exciting.
You've shared a ton of great information with us today. Where is the website that people can go to learn more about your practice?
You could go to www.dc-fl.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on our program today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Enjoyed it.
Hey, I want to thank Lalith for coming on camera with me and talking about how they have deployed eClinicalWorks' AI solution to the benefit of their patients and their clinicians. I especially appreciated his comments around how they've really, really leaned in to AI and how he has adopted all these technologies by getting buy-in from his organization so quickly by proving out the value of that type of technology. And hey, if you enjoyed this interview as much as I did, please like and subscribe. Also, head on over to healthcareitttoday.com, where you can find more great content like this. I'm Colin Hung. Thanks for being here, and I'll catch you on the next video.